that. Brilliant.
Great, thank you. So a very, very warm welcome to everyone that's joined us today. We are here and we're really excited to be here to bring you these free lifestyle medicine webinars. They're to help support you on your weight loss journeys because we really want you to achieve that long-term weight loss success. Each webinar we do covers a really important aspect of weight loss, sometimes slightly overlooked aspects, but all of which are really essential to support you on that long-term weight loss journey. You're welcome to come to as many of these webinars as are helpful for you and to revisit them as many times as useful. So if you're here for the first time, a very warm welcome. And if you are a regular with us, then thanks for joining again and a very warm welcome back. Just to sort of go for introductions again, I'm Dr. Sarah Baker. I'm one of the GPs for Boots Online Doctor. I've got a background in physiotherapy and a specialist interest in lifestyle medicine. So it's a real pleasure to be with you today. And I'm joined by my colleague Ruth.
Hi, Sarah. Good to see everyone. I am Ruth Taylor. I'm the nutritionist with the Boots Online Doctor Service and also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. We absolutely love bringing you these webinars. We're here 100% for you more than anything else. And apart from the fact we really enjoy being here, so that's a bonus for us as well. And we're joined today by Adna, who is helping us with any sharing of links and any IT glitches that we come across. And just for anyone who's not been here before, do feel free to say hi in the chat box. If you have brought questions with you, please pop them into the Q&A box. If your questions are of a medical nature, particular to your own health condition, we will probably direct you to a medical provider to answer those questions just because they sit outside the context of what we can safely answer in a webinar. And apart from that, we are happy to answer as many questions as you throw at us. In fact, we love the questions. We start by sharing some slides and then we'll be moving on to your questions once we've finished the slide share. Just in terms of that as well, questions, yes, pop them into the Q&A box. Again, if you ask us a question and we don't know the answer, we will happily go away and research. We'd rather give you the evidence-based information rather than something we think, or we might tell you what we think and then go away and check if we're right. So let's get going. Today is a really important subject. We're talking about food and what to eat, but let's start by asking you, how did you get on? How's this last week been? For anyone who was with us last week, have you had any wins? Have you got on with anything that has worked well for you? And we're also sharing a poll. So we're going to give you a couple of things to think about straight away. And here, Sarah and I can sit with our feet up. Well, what's gone well this week for you? Has there anything changed? Did you do anything as a result of coming along to the webinar? Do tell us in the chat box if there's anything you'd like to share. And do say hello as well.
Yeah, we really do like hearing from you. And the more interaction that we get, the better, really. It's more beneficial for you.
It's beneficial for all of us, isn't it? It makes us know we're not just talking to one another, which I'm sure we'd have a
Always
nice chat,
helpful.
Sarah, but we probably need to do a bit more than that. Great. So we've got the poll up, which I can see. So we're just interested to get started by knowing a little bit more about how you eat, how you sort of turn up for yourselves in terms of food. So let's see what's going on within the poll. So in terms of intentionally planning your meal, I can see around 50% of you do that when you can rather than all of the time. Maybe about 15% of you are doing it probably a little bit more regularly. And then the sort of bottom quarter of you are very hit and miss and don't do it very often at all. So you're not alone if you're in that quarter. It's quite a lot of you today. Do you know which foods help you to feel great? I love this question because actually feeling great is what we all want. We all obviously want to look great, but actually I think, do we want to feel great more than we want to look great, or do we want that in equal measures? So that's a really great question. So quite a lot of you are still trying to figure that out. So we can help you think about that a little bit more today. Eating mindfully, not so good across the board. Lots of people are eating out of habit. A few of you are aiming to be a bit more mindful, but struggling to make that work. So around 30% of you are doing it almost always. So well done. And we're all works in progress. So there's no criticism, there's just awareness. And I think this is about bringing awareness. and the time of day when we're going off track. We're put me in the mix on that one. A little bit more focused at the moment, having a good focused spell, but I know that isn't going to be like for the next year. It's not going to last every day, but right now, afternoons and evenings, no surprises. Some people are struggling with late night snacks as well. And just a very small number of you, 4% of you, staying on track. So well done to you. Tell us anything that has helped you get that focus and keep you determined to stop you going off track. If you've got anything you'd love to share, we would love to hear from you. And paying attention to how food makes you feel. Works in progress generally. And a few people, about 10%, have said that yes, you're doing this and this is a game changer. Really interesting. So thank you for taking the time. I find that really interesting, really helpful for us to see what's going on with you as well. So let's move on. Sarah, you're going to talk to us all about blood sugar. Are there any comments in the chat box we need to pick up on?
Think a few hellos. So, hi to everyone that's here, and hi to people that have joined us after being away for a few weeks.
Okay, I can see a question from Linda. Linda, will come to your question towards the end of the webinar. And don't worry about being late. We know that people are coming quite often in their lunch breaks. Good to have you here.
Yeah. So we wanted to start off by talking about blood sugar balance because it's one of the fundamental things that we need to understand how we feel eating different foods and how different foods work for our bodies. And it also greatly impacts on our eating habits and whether we're gaining or whether we're losing weight. So when we eat food, it's broken down into smaller parts like the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, and importantly, sugars. The sugars are then released, or all of the nutrients are released into our bloodstream, and the sugar affects our blood sugar balance. So we've got two charts here. One looks at the impact of high sugar foods, also sort of sometimes known as high glycemic index foods. And the green side looks at the lower, the more healthy, um, sort of low sugar foods. So when we're eating different things, particularly large amounts of sugar, we get an effect on the body seen on the red side of the chart, where we get big spikes in our blood sugar levels and then big dips. So what's happening is if we're consuming sugary foods, especially the sort of simple sugars like glucose, then we're going to get a rapid rise in our blood sugar levels. That's because the digestive system finds it really, really easy to break down these foods and release them into the bloodstream. The body responds, so the pancreas responds by high sugar levels by releasing a hormone called insulin. And it's a very useful hormone. It helps to absorb some of the sugar from the blood, and it enables our cells to either use that sugar for energy or store it as glycogen. And the most important or places in the body for that storage are the liver and the muscles. But when the cells have sort of maxed out on how much they can absorb, how much they can store, then this glucose then goes on to be stored as fat in the body, which is exactly what we don't want. Anyway, moving on. Once we've had these sort of high sugar levels in the body often will overproduce insulin because it's just trying to quickly mop up this excess sugar. And then it can actually leave us in a position where it takes up or takes away too much sugar from the bloodstream, and then we get a crash in our blood sugar levels. And that's problematic because we need a certain amount of energy to do all of our daily functions. And if we're getting crashes in our sugar, we can start to feel very tired, very hungry, irritable, and get cravings to have more sugar just to boost ourselves back up to that set point. The other problem with eating in this way, this very sort of high sugar way, is over time, if we're eating lots of sugary foods, then insulin doesn't respond as it should in the body, and we can become a little bit insulin resistant. So the body then has to produce more insulin to try and sort of reduce the blood sugar levels. And that's problematic because it can lead to health problems like type 2 diabetes and other metabolic disorders. In terms of sort of what we're worried about as well, having lots of excess sugar, so lots more calories in the diet, can contribute to weight gain if we're not using that sugar, if we're not burning it off. And that weight gain is often associated with an increase in the fat that we don't want, the visceral fat, the fat that sits around the tummy and sits around the organs, and also increases our risk of lots of other diseases. So, what we sort of want you to focus on is thinking about how you're eating, trying to eat those low glycemic index foods to try and balance the blood sugar levels out. So that's to keep sort of consistent energy levels, consistent sugar levels in the body, because that's going to make you feel a lot less hungry. It's going to reduce cravings, and it's going to put a lot less pressure on the pancreas. It doesn't need to produce as much insulin in that way. Uh,
Brilliant.
and I was just going to say, if we're eating in this way, we tend to feel a lot more energetic as well. So just a lot better in ourselves.
Sorry, Sarah. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Yeah, no, so that leads nicely into thinking about the core eating plan that we have created for you or for all Boots Online Doctor customers. So Adna, if you don't mind sharing the link for the core eating plan and also the Mediterranean eating plan, that would be great. So we've created this eating plan. It's sort of like an abridged version of two styles of eating. So it's a combination of the Mediterranean style diet and also a low glycemic approach to eating. So it does all of the things that Sarah's just been telling us is really important for us to focus on. And this is for health as well as for weight loss. So this is a way of eating that if we get our heads around it and we understand it, and we learn to like the foods in that style of eating, it's something that can set us up for a way of eating that will take us through for as many years as we want it to. So that's really important. So we don't have to learn a new fad way of eating. We don't have to switch and swap around. We can just tune in and get sort of started and keep going because it's healthy, basically. So there's no gimmicks at all. There's no sort of like quick wins. There's no sort of like we're going to all crash diet and lose loads of weight. We want us actually to get rid of that whole diet mentality as much as we possibly can. It's going to take years, I think, for us to get rid of that out of our culture and even out of our own personal thinking. But we want you to be thinking about this as a lifestyle approach as much as anything else. So we'll go through all of the combinations of why this is important, what the foods are that we're going to be steering you towards eating more of, and why they're important. But we're also thinking about, thinking 2 or 3 meals a day. That's probably what everybody should be doing as much as possible, reducing the snacking. And also that whole restriction cycle we want to get rid of. So don't overly restrict. We don't want you to be hungry. This isn't about making you hungry. We know that if you're hungry and overly restricting, the next thing that happens for most people is it will lead into an overeating cycle. It's not because you've got an eating disorder, it's just what happens. Physiologically, our bodies want to sort of create stability. We also want you to eat this way to feed your microbiome. We learned in our microbiome webinar a couple of weeks ago how important feeding our biome is, and actually eating the right foods to support a healthy gut microbiome is really important for our overall health. And there's a lot of emerging research that feeding those healthy, beneficial bacteria can really help with weight loss and weight maintenance. So it's a crucial aspect that is beginning to be understood a little bit more. And really, you want to see these changes as part of a long-term plan. So if anyone's been here before, you've probably heard this message before, but it really helps to keep hearing the message. Elle, you said you're back again, so thank you for coming back again. It helps, doesn't it, with accountability, and it helps to just keep being reminded because some of the messages that we're giving are new, some of them are reminders. But actually, we all need that reminder. None of us are perfect. And when we're living in a busy life, when we're finding it difficult to be mindful, it's really important. We want you to be aiming for slow and steady weight loss. We want it to be something that is your weight loss story for the long term. So we're not really into the fad crash diet, factory life. We're here thinking once you've achieved that initial, maybe slightly speedier weight loss, that you'll slow down into a sort of weight loss of 1 to 2 pounds a week. And that would be perfect. That's going to be 4 to 8 pounds a month, or is that then sort of 2 to 4 kilos a month? So, yeah, be thinking in those spheres. We're going to talk you through the different foods now and why these are important. So, any comments? Because a big post from Laura, so we'll have a look at that in a minute, Laura. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think you're going to start us off with protein. Is that right, Tracy?
Okay, sorry, I am. I'm going to talk to you about protein. So, protein, we talk about protein probably on most webinars because it has such an important role to play. A very few people will be on some sort of restricted protein intake because of other underlying medical conditions. So, if that's you, please follow those guidelines. But having said that, everything else that we're talking about is relevant to you. So, protein is really vital to our health. It helps with our cellular health. It really helps in terms of insulin sensitivity. We recommend that you're aiming for around zero point 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of your current body weight. This isn't based on your long-term weight, this is based on your weight here and now. So, if you do lose significant amounts of weight, you will want to rethink how much protein you need to eat. Now, one of the things we're looking at is how to advise you about which proteins to eat. And we've created a whole sheet that we're just checking through and making sure it's safe to share with you. Or, that our IT team are happy for it to be shared. But as a rule of thumb, is around a quarter of a meat-based protein is protein. So if you chose a piece of fish or chicken, about a quarter of what you see on your plate is protein. So if you weighed it and it was 100 grams, 25 grams would be protein. In the sort of plant-based proteins, then you're looking at around 10 grams per 100 grams. So it's sort of significantly less. And I think it really helps to be thinking about that. So if your beans or lentils, tofu is around 8 to 10 grams per 100 grams. So I think that really helps just to get your head around that. So, protein helps with energy balance. It can keep you feeling fuller for longer. So, in terms of satiety, it really helps turn on your sort of satiety. It really helps to control the hunger. It can, when we're getting this right every day and we're turning up for ourselves and we're getting that protein in 3 times a day, every day consistently, what we should find is that our blood sugars start to balance, our energy should come into play. We should be over on that green side really nicely of the chart Sarah was showing us. And we should start to feel quite balanced. Our mood should feel a little bit better balanced. Our energy should feel a little bit better balanced. And just generally, our hunger should start calming down. We do this in combination with the other foods we're going to talk about because we don't want to be just surviving on protein. So things that would be good to eat would be things like tofu, quinoa, beans, lentils. And if you're a meat eater, you'd be thinking about chicken, turkey, the red meats, even dairy products. So all of those would count as sources of protein. So I hope that helps. It's really important to be thinking about where your protein's coming from. I always say, put your protein on your plate first. Once it's there, you've nailed it or in a bowl. It's not complicated. We don't want to complicate this at all. So hopefully that helps. Sarah, fats.
Indeed. Fats, yes. We don't want you to be scared of fats. Fats are essential for the body, but we really need to be focusing on the healthy fats. So when we're thinking about fats in the diet, it's kind of just making sure that we're getting that good balance of these really, really beneficial fats. I think, unfortunately, it's like commonly we tend to eat the saturated fats that are the less healthy fats. They're the fats that cause inflammation in the body. And that inflammation, research has told us, is associated with adverse medical conditions like heart disease, certain cancers like bowel cancer, and premature death, as well as putting on weight. So, as well as obesity and all of the complications that go with that. So, there is really good evidence that oh, sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. What I wanted to say is that we need to make sure that we're including these really, really beneficial, healthy fats to reduce that inflammation in the body and to help the body with lots of essential functions. So we need fats for production of hormones, hormone regulation. It's a really, really good source of energy. This isn't so relevant now, but fats help to keep us warm sort of in the colder months. And they're vital for helping to transport fat-soluble vitamins and nutrients around the body. And they also help make our nerve impulses fire. So they are really, really vital. But we want to be thinking about the good fats. So the good fats are the fats that are found in oily fish, so our omega-3s. And the sort of types of food we'd be thinking about for these really beneficial fats: salmon, sardines, mackerel, trout, Herring, so that's some good examples of fish. If you're not a fish fan, not a fish eater, then there's lots of other sort of more plant-based products that you can be looking at. So things like nuts, seeds, nut oils and seed oils are also sort of really rich in the good fats. Avocados are also fantastic for that. So we want to steer towards those fats and away from the inflammatory fats, the fats that are found in the sort of commercially baked goods, fried foods, fatty meats, chocolate, especially the sort of white chocolate and the milk chocolate. So those are the healthy fats, those are the good fats, they're the fats that nourish our body. And when we're thinking about how much of this we need, I would probably say about a quarter of your plate, so 25 to 30%.
Great, thank you. Got a few comments in the chat box. If you would like to be anonymous, please change your name to anonymous in the chat box. You can do that by clicking on your name, going to the more button that comes up to the right of that, and then you can change your name to anonymous. So if you're feeling agitated or stressed because we've called your name out because you've put a comment in the chat box with your name, apologies for that. We ask anyone who would prefer to be anonymous to anonymise themselves. So thank you. Let's talk a little bit about, and thanks for talking about healthy fats. They're so important, aren't they? And so underappreciated in our society. I think if we all lived in Italy,
Said
we'd be doing a
fats
lot more.
just triggers people and it makes them worry. So it's just knowing what is nutritious and like healthy for the body.
Yeah, very much so. Um, so vegetables, what's not to like about them? They're really filling, they're full of beautiful nutrients, they're full of micronutrients, lots of vitamins and minerals in our vegetables, which are really important. They are the building blocks of all of our cells and our cellular health. So very much orientated around really building our cells in a healthy way. But apart from that, when we're trying to lose weight, we're trying to build our energy, they are fantastic at helping us to feel fuller and filling us up. They also feed our gut microbiome, so we love them. We really recommend that you focus on eating those colourful vegetables because they're the ones which are lower in starch naturally, so they help you to feel fuller without giving you additional energy points, which is really important to be thinking about in terms of those sugary, sort of more highly starchy veg, so things like potatoes, we would think, yes, have a small amount, that's absolutely fine. But we do need to be thinking about how much. So with those starchy vegetables, you would be thinking, okay, a very small amount. We have a sort of very displaced way of looking at these things. So potatoes, if you're talking about salad potatoes, new potatoes, you'd be talking about just 2 or 3 small potatoes, maybe a small old potato, which you could have baked. And if you keep the skin on, you've got extra fibre. Again, with the sweet potatoes, they tend to be quite large. So maybe a half a sweet potato would be a reasonable portion or just a small one. If you're doing a lot of exercise or you're training for a marathon, that's when you could potentially be upping the amount of those because you're going to need that extra energy in those situations. So you base it around your level of activity because I think that's really important. But for all of us, we talk about 5 a day as being our sort of like base point for fruits and vegetables. I think we need to switch it around. We need to be thinking 4 or 5 of those need to be vegetables ideally, and then the fruit are the treat foods because they bring that natural sweetness. They're also good, but we love veg more. Yeah.
Indeed. I think the another thing that's really important to incorporate into the diet is plenty of whole grains. They are so nutritious, so really, really important to incorporate in. So what are they? Well, they're basically the seeds of grass-like plants, so wheat, rice, corn. And they provide us with fiber, which, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, is absolutely essential for the gut microbiome to function healthily. They're also a really rich source of vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients. And some of those things are things like magnesium, selenium, your B vitamins, iron. So really, really important. They're also a very good source of energy to our bodies, to our cells. So, sort of some of the benefits of these whole grain foods are they help to regulate our cholesterol levels. So, anyone that does suffer with sort of slightly higher cholesterol, really, really try and focus on getting lots of whole grains into the diet. And they help to bring down our blood pressure as well. And they can be a really good way of stabilizing our blood sugar levels, as we talked about before, and in that way, helping to control our weight, helping to control our cravings. They're really, really good for reducing our risk of diabetes because of the fact that they regulate our blood sugar levels, and also sort of reducing our risk of heart disease and lots of other conditions. So we've just popped onto the slide there where we find these whole grains. So really good sources would be oats, wheat, rye, quinoa, bulgur wheat, barley, brown rice. And I think particularly want to emphasize the fact that brown rice is a really great source, not white rice, because white rice tends to be a higher glycemic index food, so it's broken down a bit more quickly by the body and it releases a higher level of sugar into the blood. So we want to be thinking about keeping sort of to a lower level those starchy carbohydrates, and the white rice would be one of those more starchy carbohydrates. We also want to be thinking about sort of when we're eating cereal, pasta, potato, just to keep that to a minimum as well, because again, those are the more starchy carbohydrates.
Brilliant. I actually learned to love rye bread. I think it's great, the sort of really dense rye bread.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think if it's, I guess it's more of an acquired taste.
uh,
Looking at the breads that kind of mix rye, sourdough, just to give yourself that slightly more gentle introduction. But yeah, I agree. Challenge yourself. If you haven't tried it before, then yeah, see what you think.
great, great challenge. Maybe we should set that as a challenge for everyone. And then we just wanted to put into the mix hydration because it's such an important and often overlooked element of sort of being healthy, keeping our cells healthy, especially, well, I mean, even more so, not especially, but even more so when the weather has been as hot as it has been. But we know that staying hydrated can really help in terms of controlling our appetites. So, some of the research out there actually has looked at these elements and has found that it can help you feel a little bit fuller if you're well hydrated. So, that's really important. One of the pieces of research I found that drinking a glass of water with every meal could actually help to reduce how many calories we ate in a 24-hour period. So I think that's really interesting. So I think it was 500 mils of water, so that's like half a litre. Is that almost a pint in old money? I think it is. I get confused. I know both, but I don't know how to correlate the two together. So I think, yeah, about 500 mils per meal is thought to be quite helpful in terms of satiety and supporting weight loss. And we would generally be encouraging everyone, unless they're following some sort of fluid restriction, to be staying really well hydrated, to using their urine as a barometer. So you want your urine to be really pale straw colour, almost translucent to be really healthy. And I found an interesting picture of how our urine should look the other day. So I'll put that onto a slide soon. Just, I think it's good to sense check and to know because it's not things that we talk about really very often. So think about what you're going to replace your drinks with, whether you're drinking enough clear fluids, whether you're drinking perhaps sort of other fluids which are perhaps more sugar loaded. If you're always adding syrups into coffees, then that is going to be adding really unhelpful calories. And we don't talk loads about calories, but I think in these instances we do. And interesting, a lot of the research around drinks and weight loss is really clearly associating high sugar in drinks as being a real contributor to weight gain. And I read a really interesting paper, and I haven't got the link, but I will try and find it again about vitamin C consumption from orange juice. And it was relating to a research study they'd done in children. But actually, what they found is that even though the children's vitamin C level was high, the rate of obesity was much higher. And that just goes to prove that that concentrated source of fruit juice, although we think it's healthy for us and we've been perhaps brought up to think it's healthy for us, is not really. It's sort of like a wolf in sheep's clothing, really. It can be quite delicious, but we want to be diluting it or having it very much as a treat rather than as something that we would have regularly. I think that was really great research that somebody has done, just proving that the things that we thought were healthy perhaps are less so.
I
So,
think the problem with
really,
those juices is it's taking the natural fibers of the fruit out as well. So when you're having the orange in its whole form, you've got fiber to help reduce the sort of immediate release of sugar into the bloodstream. Whereas if you've taken out all that fiber, then like you said, Ruth, it's just a really concentrated source of sugar.
It's safe, and we know these things. I think we all know these things, but we still think because we've been told historically that things are good for us and aren't going to do us any harm, that it's okay and we can get away with it. Um, who's not to like a little bit of orange juice occasionally? But I think it is the occasionally that makes it okay. The other drink I love, that's worth experiencing or to worth sort of playing with are things like kombucha and kefir. They're really nice, and you can get water-based kefir which are quite can be quite delicious, and kombucha. So they're worth giving a go and are often a good alternative to alcohol. We haven't touched on alcohol here, but if you are somebody who likes to regularly drink wine or beer, then really think about those hidden calories. We've got a whole podcast that Dr. David Gwynn recorded on alcohol, I think. So it'd be really interesting for us to dig out the link for that for you perhaps to listen to. So, Sarah, we've got a poll that we're running. I'm not sure if you can see that as well, but I can see it quite clearly on my screen. So, we're just asking you what you might do
Yeah.
differently this week.
Yeah, lovely. So we're sort of challenging you. We want to introduce that element of accountability. So to have you think about a change that you want to make. It just needs to be one change that you can focus on over the course of the week. And then we'll ask you next week what that's going to be. So we can see from the poll, lots of people are really interested in trying to take more protein into their diet and to include that in each meal. There's also 71% of you that would like to boost your vegetable intake, which is fantastic. I would say try and eat the colours of the rainbow there. Rather than thinking about sort of 3 to 5 of your vegetables a day, just try and get as many colourful vegetables into your diet as you can, because that's going to really increase the different nutrients, the minerals, the vitamins that you're getting into your diet. A few people, or quite a few people, 75% of you want to try and boost your water consumption. So just as a general ballpark, if you're not sort of on any sort of fluid restriction, aiming for about 2 litres a day for most people would be a really, really good level of fluid. And then we've got a few people that are interested in cutting down on packaged foods, which is fantastic. Trying to cut out sweeteners or sugar um, from their sort of meals and their drinks, which is brilliant. And then some people commenting that they want to get rid of the snacking between meals. So lots of really, really good ideas there.
Brilliant. Well done, everyone. We'll check in with you next week. Hopefully, you'll be back and you can let us know how you got on. Just to let you know, we are going to be thinking about what's coming up over the next few weeks. We are planning on running a webinar every week. We are swapping around. Occasionally, they'll be on a Tuesday rather than a Monday. All of the dates will be up on Eventbrite by the end of today. I think somebody is putting those onto Eventbrite for us today, which is great news. So have a look and do sign up for any you're going to be around for. We will be around between us, won't we, Sarah? So we're very much looking forward to carrying on over the summer and really hoping to keep you going over those slightly more challenging weeks. For some reason, a lot of people find it a really tricky time. So those are the dates. Let's stop sharing now and let's come to your questions.
Great. We've got some great questions here. So we'll start to work through those and then we'll go back to the chat box and look at the kind of comments and questions in there. So just a comment actually in the questions. Whatever I eat, I feel ashamed. I'm really sorry to hear that. That's a really unfortunate position to be in. But hopefully today we've shared with you some ways of eating, so that core meal plan, the Mediterranean style of eating, that can make you really start to look at food in a different way, to understand those foods that are going to be very, very nourishing, really healthy for your body. And you can know that you're doing a really, really positive thing to improve your health through eating those foods. So hopefully that will change the attitude that you have or the feelings that you have at the moment towards eating.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that too. And if you genuinely are feeling distressed about eating, do reach out and get some specialist support. It's not a great place for you to be and it can feel really, really overwhelming. So I really hope that you can get some support, but please come back to the webinars. We're here to 100% support you. So do let us know if there's anything you need from us as well. Um, so
Question about healthy fats. Hopefully, we answered that in the webinar. So the healthy fats are the fats that are rich in the omega-3s, so fish oil, mackerel, sorry, salmon, mackerel, trout, herring, the nuts and the seeds, avocados. I don't know if you can want to add anything else to that, Ruth, but those would be some really, really great things to start
Yeah.
with.
I mean, olives, olive oil, the seeds, seed oils, as long as you're not cooking with them. So let us know how you do with those. It can be, it's just you want a small amount, they are the small amount that come in as the sort of like little added layer on top of your food generally. So think about it that way. I always think about plates and how you're going to compose them and what you're going to put on. Somebody's asking, how important is breakfast to weight loss? Well, interestingly, there's so many conflicting pieces of advice out there. And I think it is very much more personal than just one size fits all. Like most nutrition advice, there is no definitive answer that fits everyone who is focusing on the health. I think it also depends if, depending on who you are, how old you are. For women who are in that sort of perimenopause, menopause phase of life, which we know many people who come to webinars are, so this may be relevant to you and may not, then I would say 3 meals and having breakfast within an hour of eating is really important and can really help in terms of that whole insulin stability and blood sugar balance. And I think if you're somebody who is snacking regularly or who you're finding you're getting cravings later on the day, take a look, fill in the food and symptom diary. I think that would be a great thing for us to share. So I don't know if you could share the link to the food and symptom diary as you just start working out what works for you. So I think start with those 3 meals, try and cut out the snacks, get the balance. If you're balancing really well, then you could think about bringing in the window, but go for a sort of 12-hour overnight fast. So from when you close your fridge door, when you close the kitchen through to when it reopens in the morning. I think there's a whole psychology about closing the kitchen. So even though a lot of us spend a lot of time sitting in our kitchens, we don't have to be eating all of the time.
Indeed. I've got a question. Would you recommend focusing on low glycemic index fruits? I think Ruth made a really good point when we're thinking about our 5 a day of fruit and veg, try and have the dominance towards vegetables. So think about sort of 1 to 2 portions of fruit. I'd say it's really important to get variety in your fruit, but yes, focusing on the lower glycemic index fruits. So apples, pears, berries, I think grapefruit's low glycemic index.
Yeah,
Having those
just,
kind of fruits
yeah.
will be better for you. That's a slower release of sugar into the bloodstream. So yeah, we're getting that nice blood sugar balance, a nice even blood sugar balance. So yes, as a focus, that would be great. If you want the odd higher glycemic index fruit, that's definitely better than going for chocolate or biscuits. So yeah, it's about what you enjoy. But yeah, if you can sort of deviate more towards the low glycemic index, that's
Yeah,
much.
and what you can do if you want that high glycemic fruit, so like a banana or a ripe banana, I know bananas are one of the fruits that we sell most of in the UK, even though we don't grow them here. Um, they tend to be much higher in sugar, so they're high glycemic fruit. Just add some protein, so have some nuts alongside it, and that will balance out that sort of spike in blood sugar that you might get. Somebody is asking about homemade vegetable soups that are then purified. I'm not sure what you mean by purified, so please do tell us what you mean by that. And also, I don't know if it's the same person who asked a question in the chat box about vegetable soups being a good source instead of eating vegetables when you don't like eating vegetables. Absolutely, but keep the fiber in. That's what defines the difference between a juice and a soup, is keeping the fiber in. Then you get that whole sort of beneficial less glycemic impact from having the soup, and also put some protein in there as well in whichever format you like. Add some tofu or some lentils or some chickpeas or some chicken. Just pop in some protein.
I wonder if purified means sort of broken down and blitzed up. I think anytime you're, yeah, like Reed said, making it more towards a juice, so kind of blitzing up, you're losing a bit of the fiber there. So the more you can keep it towards it's kind of the whole chunky soups, the
We
better.
got there. Thanks, Ben. We're on that page eventually. When you read something it doesn't make sense, and then when somebody says it, you think, oh yes, of course, that's it. Somebody's saying there they're doing really well during the day, but on a night struggle to feel even full after a dinner with lots of protein, lots of hydration. Find myself craving for salted crisps. Come along to our psychology of eating. It's really interesting. I think we are the messages we tell ourselves. Our behavior reflects what we tell ourselves. If we tell ourselves we can't get through the evening without craving, we often can't. Also, we wrote a little bit somewhere about electrolytes, and I think they're really interesting. If you're finding that you're craving salt, it might be worth thinking about whether your electrolytes, maybe a little bit of salt in water, some Himalayan pink crystal salt or something, put a little bit in water and see if that helps. It might get you through that. So there may be something going on in terms of wanting to just rebalance everything. And I think our bodies are really good at telling us when things aren't quite balanced. So maybe tune into that and see how that goes.
Mm. But like you said, sometimes, Ruth, it's not about not being actually full. You've had enough protein, you've eaten enough. It's more about boredom and actually other kind of psychological factors that are playing into that. Can you distract yourself in another way? Could you do something different? Could you go out? Could you read a book? Could you try and get your mind off food so that it reduces that food noise?
And also, sorry to interrupt, but I'm just thinking we've got a whole webinar on how to eat next week because actually the how of eating is as important as the what we're eating. So come along to that if you can. And we split it down into two webinars because we realized we had so much information between those two subjects that we needed to do it over 2 weeks rather than one. So, yeah. Somebody
Yeah.
said just confirm how much protein. So we're saying zero point 0.8 to 1 gram for ease. We now say 1 gram per kilo, but it's sort of zero point 0.8 as your absolute minimum per kilogram of your current body weight. So work it out. And hopefully, thanks, Adna. Adna's shared it in the chat box.
Got another question. If you're hungry between meals, what are the best things to snack on? So think about sort of vegetables with dips. So could you have carrot sticks with hummus? Could you have maybe some apple with peanut butter? Um, are you making sure that you're getting enough protein in your meals so that sort of reduces hunger a little bit? Nuts and seeds are really great. Sort of having yogurt because that's got a lot of protein in it and it's also got the healthy fats, and that could be really good for you as well. So
Great.
those things.
Yeah. Somebody's asking about a weight loss plateau having lost 4 stone. This is really common and comes up really regularly. So you're not alone, number one. And well done for losing that 4 stone. Let's not lose sight of where you've come from and where you are now. That is brilliant and really, really a major success. It's really normal to hit a weight loss plateau during a weight loss journey. And it's very normal that can happen after a stone, a couple of stone, depending on who you are, what's been going on. We have read a lot around this, and one of the things that we talk about in one of the webinars is this thing called your set point. So your body is trying to maintain equilibrium, basically. So your body is working almost against you when you're on a weight loss diet because it wants you to regain and recalibrate and be back where you were. So a plateau is actually a good thing. It's sort of your body recalibrating your weight down. So reframe it in your mind as a really positive, that's great. I'm here. I'm going to maintain this 4 stone. I'm just going to keep everything going. I'm not going to get burnt out by not seeing a new number on the scale. I'll maybe start focusing instead on how my energy is when I get out in the morning, whether my joints hurt less. What is going on that feels different for you that isn't just all about weight? Because there's plenty of other positive outcomes from losing weight that aren't just about scales and numbers. So have a think about that and really start focusing on those. Keep turning up, doing everything you're doing, really sort of like think about your protein and your vegetables, really think about your healthy fats and your hydration. Just keep on turning up. And then what you'll find is once you've gone through that plateau, you'll come out the other side. It is a real mind game, I think, isn't it, Sarah? So you have to just be in the zone and really recognize it and not be overwhelmed by it.
Sometimes it's also helpful not to focus, as Ruth said, on the scales, but if you feel that your body composition will shift naturally as you're losing weight, so it might be worth doing waist circumference measurements or arms, because it might be that you are still kind of improving that overall body shape and body composition, but it's not necessarily manifesting on the scales. And in terms of kickstarting, as Ruth said, it's about consistency. It's also just thinking about the energy consumption that you're taking, because we talked about this last week. As you lose weight, your body naturally needs less calories to sustain that new body mass. So it's always thinking about sort of moderating portion sizes as well as thinking about what you're eating.
Yeah, and also one of the things I was reading about is sort of like really upping the ante and having a treat meal every now and then just to create that metabolic flexibility. So that's something you could try, but it needs to be termed as a treat rather than as an everyday treat. So it's sort of like once a fortnight, something like that. You could just really go off the rails, have anything you want to eat, and see how you get on with that, because it can become really overwhelming content. Somebody
Well,
also questions
sorry.
around, aren't there?
Yeah. So there's someone else that's made a sort of similar comment, but they're finding it very hard to lose weight, even a pound a week, and they're not sure where they're going wrong. Um, they're sort of not technically overweight, but they feel that they're at their heaviest. They're eating healthily, moving throughout the day, and exercising. Um, so yeah, it can be a very, very frustrating journey. Um, yeah, I mean, looking at all of those things objectively, it sounds like you're doing everything sort of really well, but just go back to that core meal plan. Just make sure that you are having a good composition on your plate. Are you getting enough protein? Can you reduce those portion sizes a little bit? Are you snacking? Maybe it's worth keeping a sort of food diary and just seeing exactly what you're having when you're having it. Are there any hidden calories that you're taking into your diet? Are you having juices? Are you having milky coffees? Are you having alcohol? Is there anything that's sort of sneaking in like a little bit under the radar? Are you sleeping as you should be? Are you stressed? Because we know those things makes it a lot harder to lose weight. And then as well as exercising, are you just maintaining activity throughout the day? So it's really important that, just day to day, you're moving a lot, you're standing a lot when you can rather than sitting. That because your body will naturally be using more energy throughout the day just by keeping moving rather than necessarily doing a structured exercise. And are you having whole foods? Because whole foods are a lot harder for your body to break down and to utilize than refined foods. So again, your body will naturally be burning more energy with those things. So it's just thinking about the small changes there.
Yeah,
Good.
I would just say it may, what is your actual BMI? What's your body composition? Have you got a lot of muscle mass? Because if you have, then it may be that actually you don't have very much weight to lose. It's all about toning. Are you doing resistance exercise as well as cardiovascular exercise? Because it's all about preserving and maintaining strong muscles. So that can really be an element in that sort of creating sustainable long-term weight loss. There's plenty you can do. And are you feeling heavier? Are you actually, are you measuring yourself? Is there a difference in your size? Is your waist bigger? Or is it actually an inner physical feeling, which could be something completely different, nothing to do with your weight? So it's just worth maybe just digging in a little bit more and sort of like really looking through all of that and seeing what's going on for you. So seeing if that makes a difference. Somebody's asking, so if it's harder to lose weight when you're older. Um, I would say no, definitely not. Age isn't relevant. But what is relevant is if you've had a history of weight loss and regain and weight loss and regain, which many people have, then it could be that your body composition has changed. If you've gone through the menopause, then you are much more likely to have less insulin sensitivity. That can make it harder to lose weight. So it's about understanding the science. You can still lose weight. You can still lose weight really effectively. You just need to follow that core meal plan. It really helps with these type of things. It's not a wonder drug at all, but it can make a difference. And it's about understanding your body composition. We've got a whole webinar coming up in a couple of weeks about metabolism and body composition and movement, the right sort of movement. So come along to that if you can, because that could be potentially helpful.
I would just say there does tend to be a shift in body composition as just a natural aging process. So muscle mass drops as you get older unless you specifically work to maintain and to build it. So having less of that naturally more metabolically active tissue, if you're not working to maintain and improve it, yes, that can make it harder for you to lose weight. So as Ruth said, it doesn't have to be harder, but it can be if you're not doing all the right things.
So there's a great question here about how can I get out of the habit of wanting something sweet after every meal? Is that a psychological reliance on something sweet? Is it just habit? It is sounding like a habit. Also, we'll talk about this a little bit more next week, but the speed at how quickly we eat can make a significant difference. That feeling of satiety, it can take, I think, 20 minutes for our brain to get the message that we've eaten. So actually, if you're somebody who's getting through your meal very quickly, that can really make a difference on how you're still hungry, still wanting something sweet. Your brain is craving some energy. Um, yeah, so just take it.
But could that sweet thing be fruit rather than it
Correct.
be
Yeah,
cake or ice cream? Just
exactly.
think about how you could satisfy, if you do have that sweet tooth, think about how it could be satisfied in a healthy way.
And we also have a whole webinar on changing our habits. So if it is a habit that you're stuck with, then come along to that as well if you can.
Should you
So
get regular blood tests when using, I'm assuming it's weight loss injections to monitor your blood? It's not something that we routinely advise. I guess if you're worried that you're not eating and you might be nutrient deficient, that's something a little bit different. But then I would focus more on just having a well-balanced diet and making sure you're incorporating all of those sort of necessary nutrients into your diet. But blood tests are not something that are routinely recommended, unless, of course, you're having a side effect that maybe needs to be looked into a little bit further.
somebody is saying they're taking Manjaro and that they're now struggling to eat enough because their appetite is being suppressed, concentrating well done on protein and vegetable. But is it possible to eat too little? Yes, absolutely. And if you feel like you are eating too little, we would recommend that you possibly think about reducing your dose of weight loss medication if you're taking a weight loss medication. Because what we want is for you to be relearning how to eat in a way that is long-term sustainable. And actually, if the weight loss medication is suppressing your appetite, that you're struggling to eat, there will be a risk that when you have come to the end of your journey of the weight loss medication, you might just go back to all your old habits. And we really want to help you avoid that as much as possible. So, yeah, think about whether you need to reduce your dose, and then just to get the ability to eat and to just use it as a prop for you. I hope that helps. Do you agree with that, Sarah?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Question about taking vitamin supplements to help stay healthy during weight loss. Again, that's,
It's a yes. It's a
yeah.
yes. Yeah.
But I would say that if you are focusing on your diet and nutrition, that might not be something that you need to do. But yeah, I mean, do you want to take that any further, Ruth, with the vitamins?
I think there's just an interesting new paper that's been published in one of the sort of nutrition journals, which is suggesting that a multivitamin alongside weight loss can be quite helpful. And I think that's combined with the understanding that many people who come into that whole weight loss arena who need to lose weight are sometimes a little bit lacking in certain nutrients. If you were to do a blood test, look at your nutritional balance. So it's almost like then if you're eating less, you may then reduce that balance further. So multivitamin, just a good quality multivitamin and mineral would be generally a good idea. And generally, men don't need a multivitamin with iron in. That's really for, women who are menstruating. So have a look at those depending on who you are. Yeah.
Someone was mentioning their downfall is bread. They switched to oatmeal and barley, but they still worry about the sugar content. Bread is a tricky one. I think, particularly if you're drawn towards the sort of white breads. I'd say everything in moderation. If you're having a little bit of oatmeal and barley, or if you're having some rye bread, sourdough bread, I'd probably choose the sourdoughs and the ryes over sort of the other breads, but a little bit is absolutely fine. And maybe you do need that just to stop those cravings, and then you can sort of gradually reduce how much you're having.
And the flip side of the coin is if it's one of those trigger foods that once you've had, one or two slices, you then find you're reaching for more, then maybe it's worth just having less of it to the point that it becomes a treat rather than a regular food staple, and switch over maybe to some brown rice or something like some quinoa, and just to really shake it up. Some people really find that bread is one of those things that can be a real blocker for them in terms of success, just because it's so moorish, I think, as much as anything.
Question about electrolytes. I was advised to take electrolytes if I'm hydrating a lot. Is there any truth in it? I mean, generally speaking, we'd probably say if you're just, having a couple of liters, 2 to 3 liters of water a day, there isn't a need to take sort of any additional electrolytes unless you're kind of training, you're an athlete, something like that. It's not something that we would routinely recommend. Ruth, I don't know if you can give any more insight on that.
Yeah, I mean, they've become really trendy. So I was asked to start researching around those. So I have started, and I think the issue is many of the trendy high street electrolytes actually have got a lot of added, not so healthy elements to them. So if you're going for an electrolyte, you want to go for a really clean brand. There are a few clean brands around, and maybe consider that. Some people feel fantastic with a little bit of electrolyte drops in water, but it's very individual. I think you would need some one-to-one advice around something like that, really and truly. Um, and I will keep digging into the research. And if there's anything big to share, I'll let you know. Yeah. Somebody's asking about those apple cider vinegar capsules. Do they assist with weight loss? What we have read is that they can help. Now, there's one very small study, so let's just put this into context. It's not like a placebo-controlled trial with hundreds of thousands of participants. It was a very small study that looked at the effect of apple cider vinegar on weight loss. And what that small study found was it can be a little bit helpful in terms of insulin sensitivity. So there would be no reason to not have them. And for some people, it may be helpful. But if you're someone who suffers with reflux or GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, we would probably suggest that wouldn't be something we would jump in and recommend. The capsules can be a little less harsh because they'll go all the way down to your stomach before you're going to notice the effect, or the gummies. But some people really enjoy having the apple cider vinegar as a liquid. And if you are having that, we would recommend you have that with the mother because it's got enzymes in. But again, it's very individual. And if you are having it, you would never drink it neat. You would always dilute it. So you would sort of like take something like a tablespoon, a teaspoon to a tablespoon, a dessert spoon in a big glass of water and really dilute it. But again, if you've got any reflux, really wouldn't be recommending that for you.
I think we've done all the questions now from what I can see.
Great one in the chat box. Is it true that stress or cortisol makes weight loss harder? Yes, we have a whole webinar because it's such an important element. So thank you for asking that. There are replays. Adna, I don't know if you've shared the replays to previous webinars, but if you could join, you could have a look at the replay.
Yeah. Sorry, there was another question somewhere. I've just lost it. So someone asking about is taking Manjaro injections and they eat breakfast and are not hungry again until their evening meal. Is that a problem? We would suggest 2 to 3 meals a day, and it's about the composition of the meal. So, are you getting all your essential fats, protein, vitamins, minerals in what you're eating? I'd focus more on the composition of those meals than worrying too much about only having 2 meals. And again, Ruth mentioned earlier, if you're not eating lunch, does that mean you're overeating dinner? If you are, potentially just have something small at lunchtime just to make sure that energy levels, your blood sugar balance is regulated throughout the day. So I think not necessarily a problem, but it depends on sort of your patterns of breakfast and dinner.
Okay, somebody is saying that they're doing everything right regarding eating and exercise, but not losing weight. Started your journey 6 weeks now. Okay, hang in there. There may be a reason. Have a look at your sleep, have a look at your stress, have a look at it might be in some cases I find that people find it really beneficial to use all sorts of other mechanisms for just assessing the health, like heart rate variability and things that you can track on all sorts of electrical gadgets can be really helpful if you're really, really struggling. So there is always going to be a reason why you're struggling to lose weight. I think we are all creatures of habit, so we generally eat the same foods quite regularly, and we might just eat less of them or eat them in different compositions. So maybe start sort of like moving around in terms of what you're eating, bring in a bit more variety and just seeing how you get on with that. You may be doing that already. Keep coming to the webinars and let us know how you're getting on, and we'll do what we can to support you. But have a look at the stress and the sleep because for many people, and also your hormones, if your hormones are potentially imbalanced, that can make a huge difference. There's a question here from Sally Ann. You've mentioned that you have lost and regained weight. Currently, you've lost 3 stone. And how do you keep it off once and for all? Well, that is what we're here for. Sally Ann, keep coming to the webinars, follow the advice step by step. Don't do everything at once, it can be overwhelming. Just do one thing at a time. Get the food right, get the movement working for you. Do the resistance. If you've lost weight and regained it several times, it's very likely that your body composition will be sort of swerved to a higher proportion of fat mass. So we want to, as we're eating and as you're losing weight, we want to help you change that body composition to losing the fat and to really sort of getting some muscle strength. And that is the thing that is going to help maintain it.
I think we've probably come to the end of our time, Ruth.
Have we? Goodness me. All right. That went fast.
It did, yeah. Thank you so much for all your interaction, all your questions. Um, I think we've covered most questions. I'm sorry if we haven't managed to get to you. We'll have a look through, and then if we can address anything next week, please do come back and we'll do that then.
Yeah.
Thank you to Adna for all of your support today. You've been absolutely brilliant, sharing loads of useful links and helping us out a lot. And thanks to you, Ruth. It's been brilliant.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Good to see you all. Have a great week and let us know next week when we see how you've got on this week. We'll be interested to hear from you right at the beginning of the webinar and do bring along your questions. Take care, everyone. See you soon.